A crowd gathered, but no one stepped in. In the middle of a busy street, a blind woman stood frozen as the one thing guiding her world was ripped away. Laughter, whispers, phones recording, yet the moment felt painfully silent. Power was abused, dignity shattered, and a line quietly crossed in plain sight. What started as a routine encounter quickly revealed something far deeper than cruelty, something that would change more than one life forever. The question is, why did it happen, and who would be forced to answer for it? Most days, she moved through the world quietly but with purpose. Her mornings were steady and familiar, counted steps, the gentle tap of her cane, the sounds of a city she had learned to trust. People in the neighborhood recognized her determination. She lived independently, handled her routines, and carried herself with a calm strength that made strangers pause and look twice. Life hadn't been easy, but it had been hers. She worked hard to stay self-reliant, refusing to let her blindness define her or shrink her world. The streets, the sidewalks, even the crowded corners were part of a rhythm she had mastered over time. Every sound, every vibration, every movement told her where she was and where she needed to go. But beneath that routine was a quiet tension she had learned to live with, a feeling that not everyone saw her as capable or even worthy of basic respect. Sometimes it showed in the way people stared, sometimes in the way authority questioned her presence, as if independence itself were suspicious. That day began like any other. The air was warm, the street busy, the sounds familiar. Nothing felt unusual, nothing felt dangerous, until a moment came when the rhythm broke, when attention turned, footsteps stopped, and the presence of someone in power shifted the atmosphere around her. And in an instant, her ordinary day started moving toward something she never saw coming, but would never forget. The shift in the atmosphere was immediate. What had been a routine walk along a familiar street suddenly felt heavy, watched, unsettled. People slowed down. Conversations faded into murmurs. The steady rhythm of her cane against the pavement continued, but something about the space around her had changed. Footsteps approached, firm, deliberate, carrying authority, the kind that made people instinctively move aside. She paused, sensing the presence nearby, trying to understand what had drawn such attention. Moments earlier, she had simply been another person navigating the sidewalk. Now, the air carried tension, the kind that made strangers stop and stare. What followed unfolded quickly, yet felt painfully slow. Movements grew sharper. The calm routine she relied on was disrupted by sudden interference. Her space invaded without warning. Confusion set in first, then humiliation. The same independence she fought to maintain every day was being challenged in front of a crowd that watched but did not intervene. A few people lifted their phones. Others stood frozen, unsure whether to step in or step back. The energy shifted from curiosity to discomfort. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, but no one wanted to be the first to say it. Her grip tightened, trying to stay grounded, trying to keep control of a situation slipping beyond her understanding. Every sense told her she was no longer safe, no longer respected, no longer seen as a person simply trying to move through the world. The authority standing before her didn't see determination or resilience, only suspicion. Then the moment escalated. The one object that gave her stability, direction, and independence was suddenly taken from her. Not misplaced, not dropped, taken. The sound that followed, sharp and final, cut through the noise of a street. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The reality of what had just happened settled in, heavy and undeniable. Without her cane, the world around her became disorienting. The ground felt unfamiliar, the space around her unpredictable. For a second, it was as if everything she had worked for, her confidence, her independence, her dignity, had been stripped away in a single, careless act. The crowd shifted again. Some faces showed shock. Others turned away. A few stepped closer, but hesitated, unsure how far they could go when power stood on the other side of the moment. And still it wasn't over. The tension kept building, thick and suffocating. Because this wasn't just about a broken object. It was about being reduced, judged, and mistreated in public without cause. It was about a line being crossed while the world watched. What no one realized, what the person responsible couldn't possibly know, was that this moment was about to ripple far beyond that street, far beyond the crowd, far beyond a single act of cruelty. Because someone, somewhere, was about to learn what had happened. And when they did, everything would change. The street felt tighter, louder, suffocating. Every sound pressed in at once, the hum of traffic, hushed whispers, the faint click of cameras capturing every second. She stood there, disoriented, trying to steady herself in a world that had suddenly gone dark in a way she had never experienced before. Not because of her blindness, but because her independence had just been taken from her. The presence in front of her didn't soften. It loomed, cold, unmoved, authority without empathy. People shifted uncomfortably. Some wanted to step forward, but fear held them back. Others watched, frozen, unsure how something so wrong could happen so openly, in daylight, in front of everyone. Her hands trembled slightly as she tried to orient herself, trying to reclaim control of her space. But the damage was already done. The humiliation, the helplessness, the message sent without words, that she was powerless in that moment, and everyone knew it. Then, a voice broke through the tension. Firm, urgent, different. The crowd parted just enough. Footsteps approached, quick, purposeful, charged with emotion. The air changed instantly, as if the entire moment had shifted direction. The same authority that had dominated seconds earlier now seemed uncertain, no longer in control of the narrative unfolding. Something unspoken passed through the space. Recognition, consequence, reality catching up. The person responsible stiffened, posture changing, attention snapping toward the new presence. For the first time, there was hesitation. Not power, hesitation. Because this was no longer just a confrontation in the street, no longer just a display of control. This was accountability arriving in real time. And as the truth of who had stepped forward began to settle and the balance of power flipped in a single, undeniable instant, what happened next wouldn't just expose one act of injustice, it would force everyone watching to confront a question they could no longer ignore. The street eventually returned to its usual rhythm, but nothing about that moment faded quietly. The crowd dispersed, the noise softened, and the cameras lowered, but the weight of what had happened lingered in every step she took afterward. Her independence had always been hard-earned, built day by day through resilience and trust in a world she navigated without sight. And yet, in a single public encounter, it had been shaken in a way that could never be fully undone. Support came, accountability followed, and the truth of the incident spread far beyond that sidewalk. What began as a moment of humiliation became a conversation people couldn't ignore. Strangers spoke up, witnesses shared what they saw, and for once, the focus wasn't just on what was taken, but on why it happened in the first place. For her, the impact was deeply personal. The memory stayed, the fear, the vulnerability, the realization that dignity could be threatened without warning. But so did something else, strength, the refusal to disappear, the determination to keep walking, even when the world tried to push her backward. Because this was never just about one person or one moment. It reflected a reality many still face, being judged, mistreated, or dehumanized simply for who they are. Stories like this echo across communities, across generations, repeating until someone finally forces the world to pay attention. And now, the question lingers with everyone who witnessed it, whether in person or from a screen. When injustice happens in plain sight, do we stay silent, or do we choose to stand up, speak out, and make sure it never happens again?